All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. You're just in time for the latest. We'll let you know what's happening in about 2 hours or so from now. That's around 11 a.m. The Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examination results should be released. The 699,745 students who sat for the KCSE will then know the results that they scored. This is 2 days ago. The Kenya National Examination Council Board had usually held a meeting to approve the results ahead of their submission to the head of state. That has already happened, and therefore at 11 a.m. those results will be announced. As soon as that happens, we'll definitely take you there. But we are holding a very interesting conversation here before we get into the news. You see this book I'm holding right now? Yeah, if you can just zoom in and see it. Most of the students and children are back home right now as we speak. And I'm sure you've seen most of them on their gadgets all the time. What they do with their gadgets sometimes the parents don't even know. Some of those children are even more tech savvy than the parents themselves. So this book is from the Communications Authority of Kenya. It's a guide to child online protection. I'll be left with some copies here, so if you need any of them, just get in touch with us on our social media platform at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. I'll definitely give you a copy if you're a parent out there. It has very interesting things in there. I've just been going through it, of course I've just received it now. But joining me in studio is Mrs.Mercy Wanjau. Thank you so much for coming in. She's the Acting Director General Communications Authority of Kenya. So just before we get into this book, Mercy, and what are the do's and don'ts when it comes to social media engagement and online, generally for everybody else first?
Okay. Thank you very much, Trevor. The internet is a new space. It's a very engaging space, and it's one in which you can learn a lot and be exposed to new worlds that, that excite and entertain. But at the same time, the internet comes with a lot of unintended consequences, because both for adults and children, if the engagement on that platform lacks hygiene in the sense of safe and secure access, then it can be a dangerous place to be in. And I talk about it especially at this time when children are at home during the holiday season, spending a lot of time watching TV, listening to the radio, and even on their gadgets. It's very important for parents and guardians to be vigilant and be interested to see what the child is consuming, because there's a lot of content appropriate and inappropriate, and that needs to be very closely guided. When it comes to internet use, sometimes you find that people are very flippant about passwords, and will use them and leave them, and it calls for a high exercise of cyber hygiene, that one would keep that password safe and secure, and especially when transacting online transactions, buying things, and even on the phone. Lately, there has been a rise of people receiving phone calls, being asked to provide certain information so that something can be done on their phone, and they give out this information. During this season, when it's festive and there's a lot happening, I think would like to encourage the consumers to up their vigilance as they interact with these gadgets and on these platforms. And
you've spoken about lack of hygiene online, and I see here on this book that you just gave me a few moments ago, cyberbullying. At the lowest part there, it talks about research showing that children and teenagers rarely ever tell their adults about their experiences of online bullying. They do not fully capitalize on the tools provided by communication technologies to prevent future incidents. So how do we deal with this then? Should the parents not give their children the gadgets? How do they do it? Because if they don't report, then how can a parent monitor?
I think it is not futuristic not to give the children the gadget. It's like saying don't go on the road because an accident can happen. And this is why the Communications Authority of Kenya is very committed in creating sensitization and awareness, so that as the child goes onto the gadget, they are aware, how should I communicate? Should I share my details? To what extent? What is the kind of behavior that is appropriate on this platform? How do I recognize when the boundaries have been crossed? And more importantly, when that happens, what do I do? Communicate with a trusted adult, let them know what the experience has been, so that they can walk out of that with their image and security intact.
And I also see on page 11 there's a whole topic on child pornography. And this, what are the most startling statistics about this, and how should they be handled henceforth? Because this also takes very many forms. I see there's nudity, there's erotic posing, there's explicit sexual activity.
Unfortunately, when children are accessing information, sometimes that access will lead to content that is of an adult nature, because a lot of this kind of pornography is couched in names that also are similar, for example, to cartoons. And this is why it then becomes important for the child to be aware, the parents and guardians to be aware. There are also technical solutions like parental controls that are installed in gadgets so that it sort of acts as a filter to safeguard the child and what they may access. But at the end of the day, it's a shared responsibility, and the war can only be won when the user, the child, is aware. Yes.
And this like I mentioned, this book is very interesting, because now there's also another issue here for page 13 and page 12, internet addiction.
Yes.
What forms does this take, and how does it progress?
Very sadly, unfortunately, because of the engaging nature of these platforms, adults and children can spend too much time. By too much time, I mean too much time at the expense of conducting your day-to-day affairs, at the expense of being able to manage time in an ordinary day, and that has its own disastrous consequences. So there are rules of etiquette and hygiene around that. For example, do not switch on the computer unless you're switching it on for a certain purpose. When you go online, do what you set out to do. And often people stray and go into other things, and that can lead into addiction, which is a very unintended consequence.
So how do you know then that your child is addicted?
There are
just
certain
general observations. You're sitting with them, and how will you tell?
One of them, the one obvious one, is when you realize that the child prefers to spend time alone on a gadget. So too much time spent on a gadget, not a good thing. Two, if you notice that the child is struggling to keep up with their day-to-day issues, like to do homework or to perform other household chores at the expense of being on a gadget, bad sign. Three, if that child prefers not to talk to people, to engage with family members and have conversations because they are on a gadget, those are not good signs. And when asked if the child gets defensive, that also should be a flag that something needs to be watched very closely and nipped in the bud.
So practically speaking, say a parent is seated there and the child is on the phone, what are the best ways of ensuring that they're accessing only friendly content? Do you randomly pick the phone and take a look at what they're doing, check their history? How do you do it practically?
That's one of them, and that's a very good question you ask, because most parents will buy computers and gadgets for their children for education purposes, that the child will be able to perform better, they'll be able to do research and all that. So one of the cautions I would say is children should not use gadgets in private, in the bedroom, in the toilet, in a closed space. It should be in the sitting area where everybody is there. Two, as they use the gadget, the face of the gadget should be a face that is visible to others. So that way it doesn't look intrusive, but the parent has an eye on what the child is consuming.
Because now the other thing is what happens when the child is alone, because we know parents nowadays are all just looking for money, always at work. What do you do? Do you keep the phone until you come back? What happens?
Well, in a situation like that,
something we're dealing with in this era. Back in the day, it wasn't really a concern.
In a situation like that, it helps that the gadget that the child has parental controls installed. So already there is a filter that guards against that. But as we said, even with the best of filters, sometimes things do come through. So looking back at the history to be able to trace what the child has looked at is very, very important. But as you said when you were beginning, children are often more tech savvy than the parents. So the child who is very suave will perhaps delete history if they know they've been doing the inappropriate thing. So as I said before, the war will be won with awareness and sensitization, so that the child is aware upfront what's the right thing to do.
So is it better for the parent to preempt what is going to be there, or just to hope that they don't access it? Because, for example, when there was an issue of the Consolata child who was threatening another one, that video circulated all over, and the students were sharing amongst themselves. In that case, should you then ask your child whether they've seen that video and give them guidance before they see it? Or do you just wait and pray that they didn't see it?
I think it's the substance of a continuing conversation, because these incidences will keep morphing. And during this time, for example, people will be more relaxed. it is wrong, for example, to videotape somebody in that relaxed and casual manner and spread that kind of a video, or to even circulate other inappropriate content. So it is a caution. It is part of awareness creation that when you use these platforms, use them responsibly at all times, because liability will attach if people decide to take action in some of these incidences.
And also the other thing is, how do you guide the kinds of friends they accept? Do you tell them that before you accept any friend request, run it by me first? How does that work?
That's a whole new conversation.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, for a parent who's at home, what do you do then?
It's a whole new conversation, and much has been said, for example, about children signing a contract with a parent or guardian on what they will do for as long as they have the gadget, and if they overstep that, then this gadget will be withdrawn. Cyberbullying and cyber stalking will often happen because a child accepted a friend request of somebody they didn't know or who pretended to be who they thought they were. And often it is recommended that a child admits a parent as a friend onto that platform, so that the parent is also able to be in that ecosystem and to see what is happening as a safeguard.
So the parent can also see the interactions around that.
Okay.
So this whole issue of the children. So what happens when you realize there's some online abuse? How do you handle it? You've encountered a situation where you see that most likely your child, you've seen the history, there's something that is not adding up. What do you do?
One of the first things is to withdraw the child from that platform and have a conversation, and depending on what has happened, it actually might go to the extent of medical intervention in the form of counseling and the others. If it is a crime, an online fraud, cyber stalking, cyberbullying, also the Computer Incident Response Team at the Communications Authority of Kenya is a 24/7 safe security and safeguard mechanism. They would need to report there for that issue to be investigated and put to rest.
And I'm already running some of those hotlines underneath the screen. You can see the numbers there, and also the email address in case of anything that you need to report. That's how you get in touch with the Communications Authority of Kenya. And as we wind up, I'd like to talk about online businesses, the risks. How do you now know which one is the right one to deal with? Because there have been a lot of incidences of Kenyans saying that I was swindled by these guys. They advertised online, I sent my money, I never got the products.
Increasingly a lot of business is going online, which is good because it exposes the business to customers who ordinarily would not come in through the door. As you interact on that platform, one, it is very important to ensure that that website is safe. The .ke is a Kenyan domain, made in Kenya. That assures you that the business is in Kenya, and therefore your customer experience is safeguarded under the legislative framework in Kenya. And should an incident arise under a .ke, then reporting to the Communications Authority of Kenya would be the first place to go. Two, if it involves payment of money and all that, then it is important to ensure that the platform is safe and secure before you transmit money, and you're able to verify that in terms of reputation, the credentials, before you send your money to minimize the risk.
And so once I report an abuse or something that I saw, at what point do I expect some kind of response? How long does it take? Does the CA have a timeline?
Yes, this is actually a very rapid response because one of the mandates of the authority is to promote trust and confidence on the online platform and on e-transactions. And indeed, it is one of the growth pillars under the digital transformation platform in this country. So normally we will take up to about 7 days at the max to investigate. However, the caution is not all crimes are local. Some might require collaboration that is international, and because of that it involves more parties and might take a little more time before it is finally resolved.
But you will advise on the email once that happens?
Yes, it's a constant advisory to ensure that we are able to put the issue back to rest as best as possible.
I'm fascinated by how simple this book is, and it's actually a guide to child online protection. Is it available to the public, that they are aware that it's even there?
Yes, this is a flagship publication which we are very proud of at the authority, and one of our key awareness tools. So if people would be interested in it, consumers, parents, guardians, and even children, we are happy to supply this either through the authority or they can call here. This is one of our tools for awareness creation.
Okay. So I know you leave some of them with me,
Yes,
and also
yes.
parents can access them, but anybody else who's in a different place who's not here, how do they get them?
They
What is the
can
plan?
they can reach out to
Yeah.
the communications authority.
Yeah.
If you receive more than the packages that we have left here, we can bring in some more.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for making time
Yeah.
for us.
Thank
and
you.
also, you need to highlight some of the issues that you've picked out in
Yes.
summary now as
Yes.
you're parting short for
Yes,
that.
yes. Thank you, Trevor. I can summarize it in 5.
Yeah.
1, during this festive season,
Yeah.
up your cyber hygiene, keep your passwords safe,
Yeah.
and interact online on your phones in a responsible manner. 2, be vigilant on what your children are consuming on the various platforms. 3, guard your data jealously as you go to the very many spots and interact variously. 4, refrain from sharing news and images that are inappropriate. And 5, with the excitement to communicate,
Yeah.
do not use your gadget as you drive.
Okay.
Either put it on speaker or stop by the side of the road
Yeah.
to engage. That way, I think it assures you and the rest of us of a pleasant festive season.
All right. That's a
Yeah.
fantastic summary.
Yeah.
Cyber hygiene, vigilance, guard data, refrain from improper
Yes.
sharing of content, and do not use your gadgets while you drive.
Right.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for making time.
Yeah, great.
Mrs.Mercy Wanjau, Acting Director General, Communications Authority of Kenya. And listen, like I mentioned earlier on, some of these books will be left with us. So if you need any of them, just get in touch with us at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Mbija, and we'll make sure you get a copy as well. It's a guide to child online protection. When the children are around right now, you may need to monitor how they interact on social media. We're taking a quick break here on Daybreak. When we come back, I'll be giving you an update of the KCSE results, which are supposed to be launched at around 11 a.m. We have our reporters at the Kenya National Education Council, that's NEC, and he'll be speaking to us about the results that 699,745 candidates get to know what they scored during the KCSE exams. That right after the break. See you in a bit.